Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Viewers, once again, we are going to talk about Pakistan's domestic politics, especially the electoral politics. In the past, if you remember, we have done many shows about the importance of electronic voting machines, the changes the government wants to bring to the electoral system. There are three important things that the government has been actually pushing for. One, the biometric data detection and process, verification of voters through that. The second one is electronic voting machines. You can see on your screen at this moment, there was a machine that was fabricated by one of Pakistani universities, and the government of Pakistan has modified, improved upon that as well. The third thing was I-voting, particularly voting for those people who are abroad. The government of Pakistan wanted to give them right to vote as well, but how to do it? Because usually it becomes quite a cumbersome exercise. Not everybody can travel between cities, especially in countries like the US, where the Pakistani embassy is far off for many Pakistanis abroad. So the government actually came up with the idea of I-voting as well. Last year, the Election Commission of Pakistan actually told us that there are 115 million voters in Pakistan, registered voters in Pakistan. And there, when you talk about EVMs, it seems that while the government is staying its ground and it keeps on emphasizing how important electronic voting machines are, we see very interesting things happening. There seems to be a circular argument going on between the government and opposition. Government says, especially given its own concerns regarding electoral process in 2013, that EVMs are important because nobody trusts the conventional method of polling that has been going on. And the opposition says that it is not the conventional method that we don't trust, it is the government itself or the structure itself. And that's why whatever is going to happen is going to compromise the results. And then comes Election Commission of Pakistan. EVM machines were introduced a couple of months ago when the Election Commission of Pakistan also actually made its technical committee, and that has actually submitted a report to the standing committee of the Senate on electoral issues. So that is also a very important aspect that one has to look at. Just to tell you, but there are more than 10 countries that are using EVMs right now as we speak. These countries include Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Germany, India, Italy, Namibia, the Netherlands, Norway, Peru, the UK, Venezuela, the Philippines, Switzerland, Canada, somewhere in the parts of the US as well, France, Brazil, Portugal, Estonia, and Spain. 10 other countries are doing it. There are many types of EVMs all over the world. There is one that is a punching machine, which actually is pretty close to the punch card system or manual system. Then there are optical scanning machines also. The EVM the government of Pakistan has come up with has three parts. It is thought that Pakistan will be needing 900,000 EVMs. And if you look at the units that will be needed to be produced, it goes to 2.7 million. So that becomes a huge exercise. On one side, the concern about the ECP. Actually, ECP raised 37 points of concerns. Today, the Federal Minister of Science and Technology actually answered many of them as well. ECP says that there are capacity issues, and it is not merely the training of the staff, but also the training of the voter, because less than 2 years are left. So how to go about it? The Federal Minister for Science and Technology, Shibli Faraz, actually spoke today, and he pointed out that out of 37, 27 are capacity issues that are within the purview of Election Commission of Pakistan. The rest, 10 of them, have been addressed by the government of Pakistan. We are going to talk about all these matters and more. Before I introduce today's panel, our team has produced a report for you. Let us first watch that, and then we are going to start discussion.
The meeting of the Senate Standing Committee on Parliamentary Affairs witnessed heated arguments among the lawmakers over the use of electronic voting machines in the next elections. The meeting was attended by the committee members as well as officials from Election Commission of Pakistan, along with the chairman of NADRA. The government wants to implement electronic voting machines in the next general elections. According to Dr. Babar Awan, the upcoming general elections in 2023 would be transparent and fair, and complete cooperation would be made with the Election Commission of Pakistan for this purpose. He further added that NADRA had also requested rupees 2.2 billion and the government would ensure all available resources for conduct of free and fair elections. The Election Commission's Director General of Information Technology told the committee that the EVM does not have a biometric identification system, further adding that the machine can be made dysfunctional by inserting any glue in its buttons. He said as many as 8 reports were sent to the parliament over EVMs explaining that the pilot project had a separate system of biometric and vote casting, but the EVMs themselves had no biometric identification system. The Election Commission of Pakistan also submitted its report on the use of EVMs to the committee, raising as many as 37 objections. However, it was agreed that gradual and step-by-step introduction of electronic voting may be helpful in achieving the objective of fairness and transparency.
Right. Now let me introduce the guest I have with me, Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab, who is president of PILDAT, one of the leading private institutions in Pakistan that actually look at the electoral transparency in addition to many other processes, especially the constitutional and lawmaking processes, is with us. Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab, thank you very much for being part of the program. Dr. Zarka Suharwardi Taimur, Senator of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, also joins us via telephone. Dr. Saiba, thank you very much for being part of the program. Let me start with Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab because he was also present in one of the standing committee meetings, and there he actually also opined on the matters at hand. Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab, let me ask you, and it is going to be a very broad question. What are the pros and cons of EVMs as we know them and as they are being introduced right now, sir?
Thank you very much, Pitafi Saab. One important, I think, advantage which comes to my mind about electronic voting machines is that we almost waste 3% of the total votes cast because the votes become invalid. People have stamped it in a way that it cannot be counted for any one particular candidate. They sometimes stamp both these spaces and they do many other mistakes. So we have seen over a period of time that about 3% of the votes go waste. And this 3% of the votes, there are 24 National Assembly constituencies in 2018 election where the margin of victory was less than 3%. This means if these votes were not wasted, the result of the election would have been different, could have been different. So therefore, the electronic voting machine will reduce the number of invalid votes to almost zero because there is no chance that you can press 2 buttons and there is no other chance of mistake. So this is one obvious advantage of using electronic voting machine. Right. But on the other side, there are problems, possible problems. One problem is, of course, a huge amount of money which has to be spent. But second most important thing is that it is going to take time for procuring that number of electronic voting machines, testing them, make sure that they have the quality which they were ordered for, and then training the staff how to use these machines. It's very easy to use for the user, for the voter, but right. For the polling staff who will have to connect them, who will have to show it to the to the polling agents that this machine is was not used before. It does not have any polling data before the start of the machine, so they will have to be trained, and then you will need to create, I think, standard temperature, pressure, and probably dust-proof storage warehouses for the machine. So all these arrangements will take time. The problem is the
Right.
government insisting that
Uh,
they should be introduced in 23, and that probably will not be possible in 23 months. But if you want to do it gradually, probably it may be a very prudent step to do it for the next election, most probably.
Right. Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Sahab, there are many issues that are being raised by the opposition as well. One is the question of data integrity, and the other one is communicating and record keeping. It is said that maybe because it all is going to be digital, there won't be a paper trail. Can you speak to these two aspects as well?
As far as paper trail is concerned, the machine which we have seen has a paper trail. It
Okay.
prints the ballot, and the voter can see it. Voter can, in fact, has to take that paper out of the machine, and then he has to put it in the ballot box. This was the
Okay.
facility available in the machine, which the Ministry of Science and Technology and Shibli Faraz Saab personally demonstrated to us. So I think
Okay.
this is not true that there is no paper trail. But what was the first aspect? I really couldn't understand that.
Right. Digital integrity, sir. It is said that hackers have hacked in the various systems in the past. An example is being given of FBR, and that might actually cause a lot of problems as well. But with your permission, Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Sahab, let me bring in the other two guests as well. I already introduced Dr. Zarka Suharwardi Taimur. Let me also welcome Dr. Afnanullah Khan, who is Senator of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Dr. Zarka, because you are from the government treasury side, allow me to first bring in the opposition so that we can have right. Okay. Okay. Perhaps there seems to be some kind of technical problem at this moment. So I'm first going to Dr. Zarka Surwardi. Ma'am, regarding EVMs, you must be listening to what Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Sahab was saying. It might be a great technology, and it might be what the doctor ordered. But at this moment, it seems that there are many problems regarding timeline and resources. How do you propose to actually address this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Pitafi. I heard Mr. Ahmed, and he raised some very valid issues. It is correct that there's not much time to 2023, but I believe if it is taken up, it can be done. It is not such a difficult task that it cannot be done. It is a huge task, but we've got NCOC running. We've got the way this nation has managed COVID, and that seems like an insurmountable task. But um, this can be done. It just has to be organized and it has to be executed. I do not think it is an impossible task. It is a difficult task, but we have shown that as a nation, if we are together, if we are united, and if we execute things, we can do it. So I don't think that the matter of training. Yes, training is going to be difficult because there's such a huge the number of polling stations, number of staff that needs to be trained, and the machines have to be bought or made in Pakistan. Then, of course, the issue of their storage in warehouses in between elections, and then their integrity. But as far as I've also seen the machine, and we've been given briefings on it. So it runs on a battery. You don't need any Wi-Fi connection. You don't need any electrical connection for the machines that we were shown. Also, there is a paper trail. So it's a pretty good system. And
Right.
the voter can see that he's doing. the issue that we are facing in Pakistan is that of our is that of our political parties finding it difficult to accept any change because the system of RO, the returning officers being the central person in the elections and in managing the papers and the electoral slips, and then of course the rigging that goes with it. So there is a very huge resistance because unfortunately, in the past we've seen that the elections were mostly run by the staff of the education department, particularly in Punjab and other places.
Dr. Zarka, they are going to be, they are still going to be there. Somebody has to run the machines as well.
Of course,
ROs will be there.
They will be there, but the resistance that that we see, because why should there be resistance to the electronic voting machines? It's it's a reproducible act. You can see everything. Why would anybody want to not go for the electronic voting machines? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The world is going forward. You've got a machine here. So it is all political play that is coming in. And if we talk about the press conference that Minister Shibli Faraz spoke today, it was about the Election Commission as well. They've taken the machine to the Election Commission and shown the people over there. And apparently the objections raised by the Election Commission, they raised 37 objections, of which 26 were not even related to the electronic voting machine. So yes, there are other issues that should be sorted out other than the electronic voting machine, and we totally agree.
And with your permission, ma'am, although there are the question about timeline and how much time there is and how many things there are to be fixed still remains to be answered. I'm going to actually break it down for you when I come back to you. Allow me to bring in Dr. Afnanullah Khan. Dr. Saab, you are listening to Dr. Zarka Surwardi Taimur, or also you must have heard Ahmad Bilal Mehboob Saab. Sir, usually the broader discussion on the media at least is that the opposition actually doesn't want to concede more ground, and it is opposing the idea of EVMs for the sake of it. Can you come in and explain what are your main objections, sir?
Our main objections are relating to the rigging exercise that can potentially take place if you have iVoting and EVMs installed and election being run around them. So, I mean, there's a long list of issues that are linked with the usage of EVMs, and as I mean, you must have listened to the experts. There was Ahmad Bilal Saab over there, and then there was Rashid Chaudhary Saab from FAFN was there in the standing committee for parliamentary affairs, and also there were other experts as well, and all of them were of the view that a system like the ones that the government is trying to push should come in gradually. It should not come in one go. Then with the technology, because I am an expert in IT, from a technological perspective, the EVM is very insecure, and that is what the Election Commission is saying as well. I mean, when I was using that machine, when I was taking the demo of that machine 2 days ago, there was a use case that I told Mr. Shibli that, you're saying that you cannot hack it or you cannot basically bypass it. So there was a use case that I explained to him that, for instance, if the presiding officer is involved in the rigging exercise, then if someone comes in, he can basically identify himself by whoever he is, and then rather than if presiding officer can give him a ballot, which is a fake ballot, and he can just cast the vote in any box, and then the presiding officer can go and push the button in favor of whichever party he wants. So you can have a use case where this same setting that the government is proposing, you can basically hack it or you can bypass it. Then there is another problem, which is, I think, the biggest. In information security, you say that the system is as secure as the weakest link in the chain. So, the weakest link in the whole system is not the identification part, as far as I'm concerned. It's not the EVM or the printing machine. It is the QR code that will go towards the end into an app, which is then transmitted to the RO office and to the election commission offices as well. So when the government was saying there was no internet dependency for this system, they were wrong. You can have an election where there, on the face of it, there will be no rigging. People can come in, they can vote, but when you transmit the results through that encrypted QR code, you can just manipulate the app that the presiding officer is using and then change the results. And we have already seen that happening in 2018, where the result transmission.
Right. I understand that you are going to talk about RTS, but because you just mentioned, you just said that the RO or the election officer can go and push the button himself. What actually compels you to say something like that, sir? Because usually it is thought that there is going to be a biometric interface that actually can identify the voter, and then everything will be tallied. No?
So what I'm saying is that there are cases where the presiding officer himself is part of the rigging. Okay, so we are making an assumption that presiding officer is someone who is basically part of the rigging exercise. So in that case, the presiding officer, if for instance, if this machine is installed in a village, some village in Pakistan, where there's an old guy who comes in, he gets himself verified, authenticated. Then you can basically give him a fake ballot. The presiding officer can give him a fake ballot and ask him to cast the ballot somewhere, wherever in a box. And then the presiding officer can go and then push the button on the machine and then cast the vote, the actual vote, whoever he wants to. I'm just giving you one example. There are many other examples, and this is the same example that I gave to Shebli Saab as well. When
Afnan Sahab, I'm still a bit confused about this idea, but I will come back to you, sir, and then I'm going to, with your permission, I'm going to come back to you, and when I do, I'm going to talk about this hacking problem that you pointed out because of internet connection. But let me go back to Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Sahab. Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Sahab earlier. Okay, first let me go to Shibli Faraz Sahab. Shibli Faraz Sahab has very kindly joined us, Federal Minister of Science and Technology. Thank you very much, Shibli Faraz Sahab. Today we were listening to your presser as well, where you pointed out that out of 37 concerns raised by the Election Commission, 27 were not even related to EVM. And then you said that the rest 10 have been addressed. Do you want to actually comment on that, elaborate a bit? What were those concerns and how you have actually fixed them?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. Secondly, that yes, the Election Commission had yesterday presented to our Standing Committee on Parliamentary Affairs a list of observations that they had or they think that electronic voting machine can have. And when we analyzed that, so we found out that 27 out of those 37 were actually related to capacity-related issues, which directly pertain to the election commission of any country, or in this case, Pakistan. So obviously that does not concern us because that is up to the Election Commission to solve those issues. As far as the technical points, which were about 10, now those refer to the performance of the electronic voting machine. So in our
Shivri Sahab?
Ji.
Kindly continue.
Yeah, so we have addressed those issues already. Actually, this was their 37 points were general, issues that in the world where these issues come up when it comes to electronic voting. Now, as far as our machine is concerned, so we have to separate the two issues. That as far as our machine is concerned, this was not a charge sheet on our machine, but it was basically because today we had the first technical committee meeting, which was a technical committee which was constituted by the Election Commission of Pakistan on 17th August, where the first time when we presented, gave the live performance of electronic voting machine developed by us. So this was the first meeting held today on the technical issues. So we can't, so that's why we can say that, it's not that you publish the results and then conduct the exams later on. So this was basically the first technical committee meeting which was held today by our technical team and the Election Commission of Pakistan's technical team.
Right. Shibli sir, there are two moving parts in this which are very important. Even if there is consensus, there will be machines that will be needed throughout the country, and for that you'll have to mass produce. There are two questions regarding it. One, of the ability or production capacity, whether we have enough capacity to produce these units within next 23 months. And secondly, of quality control. Usually when things are mass produced in a rush, the quality goes down. So how do you propose these issues are answered?
Look, first of all, that as far as the capacity is concerned, so we can manage to produce 2,000 machines on daily basis. That means 60,000 machines in a month. So we need is about 5 to 6 months. And as far as the quality is concerned, obviously, it does not mean that, if a company produces 10 million units of anything, that would be of a lower quality. No, it's like one standard quality protocol that they follow, and all the equipment or all the machines that require a certain quality check, obviously that process would be done. So there is enough time, and 6 months we can deliver the machines. But that is not the issue. Major issue is not that. Major issue is that, first of all, we have to go to the people, go to the opposition parties, which we have tried and which we will still continue to try, that instead of commenting generally without having seen the machine or having understood the machine, it's a machine which is not connected, it's a standalone machine, it cannot be hacked. For example, it cannot be tampered with because there is a strict protocol which is obviously based on the international standards, and those protocols have to be strictly followed, and there would be a quality control, and there will be there's what you call a source code. So that Election Commission will have, which will enable them to understand the architecture of the whole machine.
Right. Shibli Farrukh Saab, Federal Minister for Science and Technology, thank you very much for your precious time. Thank you very much for talking to us. Let me go back to Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab. Mehboob Saab, you must have heard the Federal Minister. He at least says your concern regarding timelines and production matters. He says that is not a big issue. But earlier, I left you with a question about data integrity. Something that Afnanullah Khan also actually highlighted, that there can be hacking. And one example that is being given is FBR's data hack recently. Do you want to comment on that, sir?
I think before I comment on the data integrity, I would very quickly wish to comment on the question of the timeline. I think Shibli Farrukh Saab is very right. Maybe he can produce all these machines which are needed within 6 months at the facility which has been used to produce this prototype. But let's look at the official procedures which Pakistan has to follow before even the machines could be ordered. I think we will require 6 months or more even to order the machines, because at this time even the specifications of the machine have not been fixed, because
Right.
election commission has to approve that these are the specifications of the machine, and then it will float a tender, and the tenders will be received, and it will be an international tender, which means you will have to give a lot of lead time for that. And when the tenders will come, they will be evaluated, and then the order will be placed if one of the tenders comes up to the expectations of the election commission. So I personally think that because of the government procedures, because of the PEPRA rules, the time to procure and time to secure the delivery will be much more than what Shibli Faraz Saab was saying. Uh, and secondly, this machine is not going to be necessarily produced at the facility where Shibli Faraz Saab has produced the prototype, because who knows who will be producing, because it will be after the competition. And I think even producing this machine by the Ministry of Science and Technology, to be very respectful to the ministry and commending their work, I think it was unnecessary. It will have to go to the 0 point to the election commission, which will have to start again from the zero, because they will have to fix the specifications, ask for the machine to be produced, tenders will have to be given. So this machine which is produced, which we are asking people to see and appreciate, will come to a naught, because machine will be produced maybe by another producer. So this is
Okay.
something which is job
That's
of the election commission,
Ahmed
which
Bilal
unnecessary.
Mehboob sir, that's a very good point. But let me marry what you were saying with the timelines that the minister gave. One, you spoke about the procedures, due process. Sir, the idea of competition, is it not about improving the standards, quality, and reducing the cost? So the machine that the Science and Technology Ministry has actually produced, it will in any case work as a baseline for whatever procurement we are going to do. If there is a bid that improves upon that quality or the speed or the monies, that will be adopted. Otherwise, this will automatically be adopted. No.
I don't think it will be even be a baseline, because election commission, we are forgetting that basic decision maker, basic responsibility is that of election commission. And election commission has not accepted this as a baseline. It has objected to this particular machine, and still I'm glad that technical teams of election commission and technical team of the Ministry of Science and Technology are talking to each other rather than talking through media. It will be very good if they sit together and resolve the issue. But election commission, as of today, they have not accepted this machine as the benchmark. So until they do that, probably this cannot be accepted as a model against which the future machines will be measured.
Right. My humble point was that it actually delivers certain goods or services, these machines. If a machine comes into in competition, that will have to be even smarter, quicker, and cheaper. Is it not true, sir? If that happens, if I take your timeline of 6 months regarding the process and his timeline of 6 months of production, we still have at least 11 months to actually train the staff and deploy these machines.
Pitafi Saab, actually, instead of measuring the machine which will be procured with the machine which has been produced by Ministry of Science and Technology, we will have to compare the machine which will be procured with the specifications of the Election Commission.
Okay.
Basic Election Commission specifications are very different from this machine is. For example, I'll give you one example, and I have read those specifications. Election Commission wants that the paper trail which comes out of the machine will not be accessible to the voter. Voter can see it, but cannot hold it, cannot touch it. It will be encased in a transparent case where it can see it, and after some time it will automatically drop into the ballot box.
Okay.
Whereas in this particular machine, this comes out like we get any printout from a printer, and the voter will take it and then will put it in the ballot paper. So this is a very simple, but there are many points which Election Commission has specified which are different from this machine. So probably this is a technical discussion which will
Right.
take time to resolve. All I'm saying is that when you combine the question of manufacture, question of tendering, question of training, probably election commission itself, which is going to be responsible for all this, is saying is not enough for us to do this job. And Pitafi Sahab, do
Right.
not forget, government is taking too much responsibility on his head. Government should be asking by this time election commission to go ahead with the, we have passed the law, please go ahead and now start the process, rather than they producing the machine and asking election commission to comment on it. It should be the election commission producing the machine and people and other stakeholders commenting on that. So it is going in the reverse order. My thing is the
Right.
correct order that ask election commission to do the job.
Right. That's a very good point, sir. Although initially the question was also about data integrity, but because you have actually pointed out that there's going to be a paper trail, so that cancels that
I can
question as
quickly
well.
answer that. Pitafi Sahab, I know I took long time.
Doesn't
I think
cancel.
the example of FBR is not correct, because FBR was an internet-based system, and that could be hacked. And I think the overseas Pakistanis voting system based on I-voting is also susceptible to hacking. But this machine is not susceptible to hacking in that sense. But as Afnanullah Saab mentioned, it's a QR code which will have to be transmitted over the internet. That's a very weak link in the chain. That will be a problem. And secondly, I've heard experts hacking the machine in India by attaching a radio device to the machine which works on the chip on the machine and compromises its integrity. So there is a possibility of that, and it should be looked into.
Right. This is a serious concern. Dr. Zarka, I left with you with a question because although the federal minister has actually clarified the timeline aspect of it, but let me just for the sake of this question point out how many moving parts are there. One, of course, there is going to be two components which are very crucial. One internet, the other electricity. I understand there are batteries, but batteries are known to fail as well, even if they are going to last for 24 hours. One, the question of network congestion, then production of these machines, 2.7 units is 2.7 million units is not a small number. Then, of course, there will have to be issue of logistics, sending these machines to areas, deploying them, then safeguarding them through strong rooms and similar kind of facilities. Then two kind of staff. One, the staff that actually operates them. Secondly, the staff that actually secures them once the total process is over. And remember, they are going to be used only once in 5 years. So that becomes a concern as well. Then there is question of voter training and staff training. We have talked about how to train the staff, but voter easily gets intimidated by technology. So they will also have to be sensitized. Don't you think that all these moving parts, when you look at them, this time is not enough?
Thank you very much, Mr. Pitafi. I will first respond to what my colleague Afnan said. He being an IT PhD, as he tells me, I'm surprised that the objections he raised were, one was based on the presiding officer bringing in anyone and asking him to vote. And so I would like to ask him, that's not an issue with the machine, that is an issue with the presiding officer. And that issue exists as of today, even with the previous system. So there's I don't see any technological issue there. The issue
Yeah,
of the
but
QR code, I would like
if
to pick up.
that question is going to persist, why graduate to another one?
Yeah, so the question is then, why is, the entire world should go back from computers? We were talking about the QR code and we were talking about hacking. So then the entire world should not be going towards IT, should not be going towards computer. We should all be going back to paper and pencil, and we should quit all of this, the internet, the information revolution. It doesn't make any sense because it can be hacked. I mean, I think that's a very, very antiquated argument, and coming from sensible people, I'm a little surprised. Okay, and then so I think the real issue is the one that you picked up, is that of training, is that of storage, is that of managing these machines and managing 300,000 polling booths. So that is a real issue, but it's not an issue that cannot be handled or cannot be managed. It can be done. If this nation is ever to progress, then this nation has to take up these issues, and we can deal with it. I mean, it is a logistical issue. It can be done. But until and unless we come to terms with our, I'm sorry, but the EVM, when I look at the electoral reforms, I would like to discuss some of the other issues, not the electronic voting machines, because the electronic voting machine is a tool that has to be used in a prescribed manner, and it can be tweaked as we want to tweak it. The real issues in the election process.
Ma'am, there's a reason why we are discussing EVMs, because it is being debated by not only media, but lawmakers and even ECP. Allow me to, Dr. Zarka, allow me to actually go back to Afnan Sahab very quickly, because I'm told that we are fighting against time. Let me ask, Dr. Afnan, 10 years ago, this actual prototype was produced. Now it has been improved. For 10 years, we could not deploy it. When you say that there is no haste, there shouldn't be any haste. How long do you want it to be delayed? Because eventually, if you agree in principle to the idea, it will have to be used someday.
I mean, we agree to the use of technology. We do not agree to the use of EVMs in general election in 2023. So as far as technology is concerned, it is good, but as far as EVM is concerned, there are many issues. I mean, there are a lot of issues that were highlighted by ECP. There were many issues which were highlighted by the independent panel of experts in this area. And I'm really surprised people who have very little to no understanding of technology are telling everyone that EVMs are secure and they are good to use. We are not making an argument against technology. We are making an argument against EVMs and the cost-benefit analysis of that, and also the fact that we know the environment where the elections are conducted in Pakistan. We understand that there are forces who would want to manipulate it. Therefore, it is not in the favor of Pakistan and in favor of democracy that we should adopt something like this so quickly. Take example of India. It took them 25 years, many elections, and then eventually the technology matured. And a lot of this has to do with the political consensus as well. If there is no political consensus on this, then there will be a huge problem. I mean, the 2023 elections are going to be controversial before they were actually going to be elections. So I mean.
Right. Dr. Afnan, one aspect is very important that you just pointed out, and that is lack of consensus and lack of trust. And that seems to be the main problem. In India, other countries, until there is consensus or trust, things keep on moving forward. And you cannot actually create that thing out of blue. We'll have to wait and see how actually this thing pans out. I'm told that we have run out of time. Dr. Afnanullah Khan, thank you very much for your precious time. Dr. Zarka Surwardi Taimur, thank you very much, ma'am, for your precious time. and Ahmed Bilal Mehboob Saab. Always great listening to you and having you in the show. Thank you very much, sir, as well. Viewers, this was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.